Good morning, colleagues. Um, I'm looking at the list. It seems like we are still being joined by a number of people, but I'm sure that that's going to be the case throughout the day. People are going to be coming in and out as we go along. So can I just check whether I'm audible? Can someone just let me know?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Then I think it's time for us to start. So from my side, a hearty welcome to all of you who are present here today at our third fully online distance education symposium, or FODIS for short. It's such a privilege to be spending the next 2 days in the presence of so many like-minded individuals. It's rare to find your people in one space, and I think we are with our people today and tomorrow, where we all have a passion for education and we all have a passion for technology, and when you bring those two together, we know that magic happens, right? Well, for many years, for more than 100 years, a century at least, we know that very little had happened in education, and then computers came along and it seemed like there was a little bit of movement, slow, and there were lots of resistance, but things were starting to change. And then I think at the beginning of the year, when darling ChatGPT, the poster child of all things AI, hit us, I think most of us become aware of how this is a significant change. It's no longer, I think, just a change that will impact education in its core business, but also humankind. As a species, I think we are in for a bit of a ride with AI and all the capabilities that the new technologies bring along. And so I was, when I started with ChatGPT, I was late for a change. Even I think it was available already in September, October last year, but I only really started playing with it in February, March this year. And of course, I was in awe, and in terms of its capabilities, and very aware of how significantly this is going to impact our lives going forward. But it was at that stage just text, it was like a research assistant on your side. You could have all these conversations with it, get really good and quick and fast feedback. I could see how productivity could improve. And that was wow. And then suddenly 2 or 3 weeks ago, a couple of weeks, maybe a little bit more ago, we started seeing that now it's no longer just text-based. Now you can, the likes of ChatGPT and Bard and Edge and all the others can start interacting with graphics as well, and even with sound. And so there is a very steep learning curve, and the disruption keeps going. It's not just, it hasn't given up after ChatGPT. It's the gift that keeps going. So I played around with something yesterday evening. I actually had I was working on a OER presentation for another audience, and I was working through a grade 10 life science study guide when I came across a little picture, hand-drawn, obviously, of the insides of a cell. And it was quite rudimentary, but I thought, let me just check this ChatGPT 4 function where you can now actually put the picture in. So I put it in there and I said, what is this? And I thought it might, at least identify it, but it went way further than that. I always kept thinking that AI doesn't have any human qualities, and so there's certain things that us humans are good at. But the one thing that ChatGPT now taught me is that it can judge as well, because it had a very value-based, first sentence where it said, it seems like this is a very simplistic picture of the inside of a cell. And so that simplistic was quite a judgment in my mind. And it was telling me not only just that it's the inside of a cell, but it started identifying the mitochondria and what it was all about, and it went through a whole lesson. And I was actually quite surprised at how sophisticated it was from a hand-drawn picture. And then I was on a conference last week together with some of my colleagues. We were in UKZN and we were inspired by so many people there, amongst other Donald Clark, who was presenting a workshop on AI. And he was telling us about avatars and what avatars can do nowadays and how you could use it in education. And I thought, well, that's also something I want to play with. If we say that we are at the forefront of technology and we want to know what's happening, then at least at a conference like this, we have to open it also with a bit of technology, right? We can't just go back to the normal talking head. And so I played around last night, and so I do put a disclaimer on this. It's very entry level. It was like literally an hour's worth of playing. I think if I spend more time, I could obviously improve it a lot. But I want to share with you a video that I made last night where I taught a program what my voice sounded like by reading a piece of text. I then uploaded a picture of myself, and I wrote something about the conference that I wanted to say, or the symposium that I wanted to say this morning in a text. And I played around to see what came up. And so I do have something, and I'm going to play it to you now. But two things. One, remember that it was done in an hour, so I'm sure it could be, many of you could do it much better. And secondly, I want to say there might be some bandwidth issues, and so it might be a little bit out of sync, but let's give it a go and see how it goes. I'm going to share this with you. And I'm hoping that it will show up on the screen. There we go. And there we go with the sound.
And how-to sessions.
Oops.
We look forward to meeting up with you at the Bingo Cocktail in Kumo Space.
Oh, no, wait. I've got to start from the beginning.
Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to the third fully online distance education symposium with more than 300 delegates and presenters from more than 10 countries spreading over 3 continents, namely Africa, Europe, and North America. We are bound to have some healthy discussions and debates over the next 2 days. Apart from the keynotes and the panel discussions, we also look forward to a variety of presentations, workshops, and how-to sessions. We look forward to meeting up with you at the Bingo Cocktail in Kumo Space at the end of the day, where there will be a lucky draw with a number of great prizes, courtesy of our sponsors. So, without further ado, let's get started.
So yeah, I feel I almost have to apologize for my accent. Strangely enough, I actually read something into the screen and they were supposed to use that. So I'm very concerned that that is actually the way I sound. So I'll be double checking with all my colleagues just to make sure that it isn't, you know, what I am. So I used Hygen. H-E-Y-G-E-N. I had to pay for the ability to actually use my own voice, but for the rest of it, it's just fabulous. There are so many different avatars that one can use, and I'm sure we'll learn from many of you in these how-to videos how to do similar things and even much more, and even get better. So without then further lots of talking, I want to hand you over to Dr. Marie van Wyk, who together with her team here at Comprehensive Online Education Services at the University of Pretoria has put in so much work behind the scenes to make this happen for us. Marie, I know you guys can't wait for tomorrow evening. That last glass of wine is going to go down really well, but we appreciate the hard work and we make sure that we make it worth your while from, you know, being enriched and disrupted, hopefully, by all of the colleagues that are here today and tomorrow. Marie, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Linda, for the introduction and the opening of the symposium. And then I also want to welcome everybody who have set aside some time to attend and to participate in this. So just for a few seconds, maybe minutes, we are just going to have a short activity where we are going to introduce ourselves. And after that, we will do the grounding, and then by 9 o'clock, the keynote will start. Before I start with the introduction, just some advertisement and marketing for all our activities. Please follow us on social media for any other events that might happen. And then also have a look at the Kuma Space area for how do you enter to the lucky draw. Look at in the exhibition hall for the sponsor information, and please support them, because if it was not for them, then there will be no lucky draw at the end of each day. And then we also want to just remind you, it's new this year, we have a symposium social just after the closing session. So those of you who have to run, you are welcome to do so. But if you can stay a bit longer, we will move then into Kuma Space, and there we will end off day one in a very fun way. So please go and have a look at all of those things. I'm going to put on a slide. So while I'm going to put you into random groups, and I think we're going to do 2 or 3 times, because there's about 59 people in the room at this point, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet at least 3 people after the session. But let me show you what is the idea. So last year we worked with colors, and I attended so many places where we ask you to pick an animal and introduce yourself with the animal. And then you get the normal things like I'm a leopard, I'm a zebra, I'm a giraffe, and all of those things. So let's change our thinking a bit and pick an insect and introduce yourself by referring to the insect. So yesterday it was chaos in our lives. So this was the insect that I identified with yesterday. So today I wish I'm a centipede, not enough hands to do what I want to do. So have a thinking while I'm putting you all into groups. We're going to rotate about 3 times, and each time you can pick another insect if you want to. So let me just go to that thing. If you can just indicate if you are still in the main room and not put in the group, but it looks like it's only the moderators in the group.
Yes, it's only the moderators,
Cool.
everyone else left.
For a moment I went blank.
It looks like group 2's got 20 participants. Is that the idea?
No, it's not the idea. So let me just end it.
And group 1
and 2 at 20.
Okay, let me do something else. End. Yeah, I interpret the instruction. Instead of saying 2 in a group, I say 2 groups. So let me just do it again. And decide number of the groups.
How do we get into this group, Mary? Do you allocate us?
We are going to make new groups now, and I've also added the moderators as well.
Okay.
So there will be now about 3 of you in a group.
worm today, you know, because
Oh,
Just reconnected.
Okay,
we
we
finished.
back in the main room.
We finished with Amanda.
are we back
in the
together?
main room?
Amanda and I are not done.
No,
Okay.
it's
Okay, I'm going to give you another opportunity. Let's do 2 more of these. So we are going to go back. Breakaway group. So you must speak like 1 sentence, ne? Okay, we're going to do that again. This time I've kept all the moderators in the main room.
oh, thank you.
Okay.
I was out of ideas, so I'm glad.
I've lost my controls, so I had to change the settings to allow users to move around to get myself out of a group.
Oh, good.
Oh, but as a moderator, you should be able to get yourself out of a group, even though
I
the
could,
participants
yeah, but
are not able to.
yeah. No, I managed to get it right, but I don't want to panic again. It's a panic in the morning.
Well, Marie, my peers really enjoyed it, so this was a nice one. I don't know about the other groups that you were in, but mine were all having a really good laugh.
Okay, then it's good. I haven't even timed it. I'll give another few seconds and then I'll do a last one. We are a little bit early, and I'm also going to talk now quickly about the plenary session. Maybe we can get our volunteers before the keynote starts. So Eugenie, thank you for that.
I don't want to volunteer. I just don't want to be in a position where there's no one.
Yeah, there was a slight misunderstanding, and luckily I've just sent an email now and got the good news now that there's a misunderstanding and not an hour from now. So we will sort it out. Yeah.
Awesome. No, if you need someone, I'll make it up as I go.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop and bring them back.
A second time, Marie.
Are enjoying this. So let's do another last one. Just give everybody time to return back to the main, and then we'll do a last one.
Word the second time.
Breakouts.
So for those of you who are joining the session now, we are busy with a round of meet and greet. So just be patient and the rest of the people will join just now. Okay, I'm going to stop the groups. Turning back to the main room. Just give me some indication in the chat. Did you at least meet 3 people? Or was it every time the same person in the group? New people. Oh, that's good. Wow. All right. So it worked actually very nice. How did you like the idea of being an insect for this few minutes? No, I'm not an insect person. So for me, it was hard to find one. Okay, so that's good. So as I've mentioned in the chat just now, the purpose of a plenary session, and I'm going to read you the definition from Wikipedia, which in our eyes is a very good start to find information. A plenary session or a plenum is a session of a conference or deliberative assembly in which all the parties or members are present and there are no absentees. And that is where a broad-ranging debate may be conducted and where all decisions by the conference are taken. So we're not going to take all our decisions here, but we are going to zoom in on that part where it says a broad-ranging debate may be conducted. So we are going to listen now in the next 5 minutes to our keynote speaker, and we will introduce her as soon as we see she has joined the room. But in the meanwhile, we would really like 4 of the audience members, and it would be actually nice if you are a speaker, but if not, any 4 of the members will volunteer to participate in the plenary session. So the topic of the plenary session is constructive strategies to prevent cheating with AI. So we have heard earlier today what AI already, a small little snapshot of what AI can do. And we are going to continue the conversation, and we are going to the not so fun part now and have a serious discussion about constructive strategies to prevent cheating with AI. And Prof. Johannes Cronje will lead this discussion. So while we are listening to the to the keynote, please volunteer, and then we will give each one of you then presenter rights. Okay, thank you so much. Can we just see, Philippa, are you here yet? Okay, Lee, can you just follow quickly up to see if she is maybe struggling to connect? Because she said she will join at 8:50. Or Donald, one of you. Okay. All right, thank you. So in the meanwhile, what about another round of insect game? So sorry, we'll have to make up a few minutes here. So let's do another introduction and hope we'll get a 4th member to meet. And there you go.
So why is, let me just check, are we the only ones in the room? Why is it that we always end up with plenary speaker difficulties? People are...
She said she's going to join at 10:02. So I just want Donald to check if she is not joining maybe a wrong place or something. She's not supposed to. And she tested her technology yesterday. We had a discussion. So it's not like she was not prepared. So I'm just a bit worried now.
There is only one space open to the participants at this moment, which is
Okay, so there's nothing else open.
This is
Not in the Google Meets session.
Okay. Lee, just check the link that I've put in the invite. If I haven't put the wrong link in.
Okay.
Marie, I think
Yes?
she is already here with us.
Oh, Philippa. Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you. We were for the moment worried where you are. Okay, so what we have just did, we have put all the participants in a quick breakaway room, and they pretend that they are an insect and they need to introduce themselves. And just give them a few seconds because there are 3 in a group, so they at least have a chance. Each one can get a chance. We will start at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, I will bring them all back. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then you can share your screen.
Okay, I'm back.
Are you back?
I am back.
You are a presenter, and you can share your screen, and then
Perfect.
I'll give you a few seconds to get until I see your screen. Then I will stop the groups.
Thank you. So I will just share here, and then I will go to slideshow.
That's it. We can see your screen.
Can you see all of my screen or just my slides?
Yeah, I see the whole screen plus your 2 logos at the top right and your signature at the bottom.
Is that better? Is that okay there?
Yeah, for me it's okay. I can see everything.
I can't see you or anybody else.
At the bottom of the oh, because you are sharing the screen, you're at the bottom of the left-hand side, you're supposed to see me.
Yeah, so I can see you now. At the moment, can you see my slides okay?
I can see your slide and I can see you.
Ah, perfect. Okay. So I think this is how I will view. And then sorry, how do I move the slides?
So are you working on the PDF or are you working on your proper Google Slides?
Yeah, I'm
so
on.
You just need to, yeah, so you need to, that it's moving.
Ah,
okay, so whatever you did now is right.
That is the thing. Whatever that was.
Yeah.
So let me go back. So I need to move it on there. I've got it. I'm here. I'm happy. I'm excited. I've got a coffee. I'm good. How are you? Are you excited for the day? It looks like a great event.
We are very excited. So I'm going to dismantle all the groups now, and then Prof. van Reineveld will quickly introduce you very, very shortly, and then we'll hand over to you. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay. Today to the main room, and everything is ready. Prof. Linda, I'm giving over to you to introduce the speaker for us, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, guys. Back to human nature. We're back to our human species again. No more insect talk in this room. I've got the privilege today to introduce you to our keynote speaker, who is Dr. Phil. And it's not the one that you think that it's a commercial TV show psychologist person. We are way more privileged to have Dr. Philippa Hardman in our presence today. So Dr. Phil is an affiliate scholar at the University of Cambridge. She's a learning scientist and also the creator of DOMS, a groundbreaking evidence-based learning design process. We know her as a thought leader in the world of learning design, and she's got a really large and dedicated following in LinkedIn and Substack. Dr. Phil has had more than 20 years experience researching learning science and design, both in the flesh and online and in hybrid learning experiences. She's designed multiple high-impact learning experiences, including the University of Oxford's very first and most successful MOOC. And she's also successfully led the largest learning design project in history while she was the VP of Learning at the tech startup Ola. And more recently, Dr. Phil has started to consider the role of AI in learning design and delivery, as I think most of us have. But most of us didn't do this. She delivered a TEDx talk on AI and education, and she also founded an AI Ed startup. And so we look forward to hearing more about all of these wonderful projects, and we want you to also disrupt our lives. Philippa, over to you.
Thank you so much, and what a wonderful introduction, and also very long. I think it reflects the fact that I've been around for a long time. I'm very old. I have a ring light, so maybe you can't tell. But yeah, so I have been, it's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I've been researching the overlap, I guess, between three things. So learning science, so the science of how humans learn; learning design, so how we design learning experiences, specifically online learning; and technology. So what are the technologies that we use to deliver learning experiences? And the question that I've been asking for now about 25 years is, can technology help us to optimize the work that we do as people who design and deliver online learning? And as you can imagine, as you just mentioned, over the last 8-9 months since generative AI blew up everywhere for everyone, AI has become the focus of that research. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to just very quickly spin you all through what I have learned over the last, I mean, to be honest, not just 8 to 9 months. Maybe a reassuring thing to start with is the fact that we've been using AI in online learning now for as long as online learning has been around. So as a society in the world, we have had AI as long as we've had DNA, as long as we've had space travel. It's been knocking around for about 60 years. So if you've used platforms like, I don't know, LinkedIn, Udemy, Coursera, maybe even your internal platforms, you will have used some form of AI. So it's been knocking around for a while. But I guess what's different now is that we all have kind of unprecedented access to it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an AI 101 lesson just in a second, but also it's becoming more powerful. And so the question I'm asking is, like, I guess just for context, right now, is AI going to be the future of online learning? Is this the moment that we actually start to use AI to transform how we design and deliver and evaluate online learning? That's the question. And I do not have the answer, but I'm very happy to talk with you about it. So my first hypothesis, and please do feel free to challenge me if you disagree, but my hypothesis, my starting point based on research, is that online learning as we know it, and I say this as someone who designs it, is broken. So why do I say that? Well, there is some good news. So on the left-hand side here, you see that there is a huge appetite for online learning. So humans like the concept of online learning. 189 million of us enrolled in online courses in 2021 through choice. So it's not just something we do because we have to do it. Actually, people really like the concept, at least, of online learning. And 70% of learners, this is like just learners out everywhere, so in higher ed, but also beyond, actually say they prefer online learning to in classroom learning, which is really interesting, I think. But then on the other side, maybe the bad news is that despite all of this excitement and appetite, 12% is the highest reported rate of learning transfer. So by what I mean by that is, for online learning, at its best, there is a 12% rate of transfer from what somebody learns to what they actually know and what they do. So that obviously could be significantly better. I should also say that's the average rate for in-person learning too. So it's a problem with learning design and delivery generally, not just online. But we still are suffering with this 4% on average rate of online course completion. Of course, completion isn't everything. There is a scenario in which we start a course, don't finish it, but we learn something. But I think it's very indicative of the lack of value and engagement of online learning that we're only getting from these people who self-select and opt in. We're only getting a 4% completion rate on average, which obviously, again, could be significantly better. So what's the problem? This is my big research question. When I ask people out in the world this question, so people primarily in higher education, generally it's the technology that gets the blame. So it's a kind of matter of like, oh, well, if only the platform was better, if only we could produce better videos, if only students had more time. All of these things, very practical delivery type issues, are considered to be like the fundamental problem. But actually, I think while those things matter, I think there is a bigger, more underlying problem, and this is what I refer to maybe a bit too dramatically, but as the curse of knowledge transfer. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, if we rewind to the Victorian period, when education was first introduced to the world on a relatively global scale, it took a little bit of time, but we introduced a model of teaching and learning, which was, as you can see here, a sage on the stage who knows something, and the idea is that I transfer that knowledge to you by telling you about it and telling you about my experience of it. That model has not been fundamentally disrupted since the 19th century. So if you think about, for example, the MOOC, which was like the whole, like, it was full of promise. I'm sure, I don't know if you did, but I got very excited about the potential of the MOOC. But what we tended to do with the MOOC, the reason that the MOOC was not more successful, is that we scaled this broken model. So we scaled a model where, yes, you get access to the best possible content, but you, because of the way that content is delivered, you will forget it in no time at all, and you certainly will not see a transfer of that into any kind of behavioral change or long-term kind of knowledge change. So the system is broken as far as I am concerned, and so the question I've been asking, as I say, over the last few years, but with more focus in the last 8-9 months, is can AI help? And I think the answer in a nutshell is maybe. It could go either way. It depends how we as humans decide to use it. And that's another big takeaway I think I'd love you to think about after today, is that often I think the language around AI, the conversation that we're having at the moment very much puts the power of AI in the hands of AI. But actually, it's a tool for our use, and we as humans make decisions about how we use it, how we build it, how we regulate it. And so whether or not AI can help is more a question of, well, how are humans going to use that tool, rather than is the technology capable of it, which I think is often the argument that we hear. And so just very briefly, I think one of the biggest challenges, certainly that I've experienced firsthand, but also that I've learnt from colleagues in the field, one of the big challenges for we learning folk when it comes to AI is that it's just not our specialism. Like, we're not, unless we're a computer scientist, we generally haven't got much background training in AI. So here is just a very quick, from a non-expert, AI 101 lesson. It's a whistle-stop tour. And so broadly speaking, what we've seen over the last 60 years, 60, it is a long time that we've been working with this, 3 types of AI have kind of evolved. Now, these aren't mutually exclusive, but they did happen in this sequence. So the first thing that we had was AI used for classification of data. This is, if you hear people referring to machine learning, this is what it is. And essentially, like, classification is where we humans select information, we select data, and we feed it into the machine, and we tell it what it is. And what the machine does is it learns it learns the formula, it learns patterns. So for example, if we feed the machine a ton of images of cats, because let's face it, that's why the internet was built, I think, to look at pictures of cats, it will over time understand, like, the formula for a cat. So it doesn't know what a cat is, but it knows how to spot them. The next stage, you can imagine from there, is that we can now use that information that's been classified to generate new stuff. So because AI now knows what a cat is, because we've also trained it to know what a movie poster is and what a movie is, I am now able to spend my time, my valuable time, generating images of movie posters about cats. And it does that because it knows all of that data in the background. And I think a really important point here, and one that I think keeps coming up in conversation, is around ethics, bias, reliability. So I think the 2 big things to take away here is that for both classification and generation, it all depends, like, the reliability of the AI depends on data that is selected by humans and defined by humans. And what that means is that the data sets that sit underneath the AI that we use, so for example, ChatGPT, which you might be familiar with, or Bing, or lots and lots of tools, they have a selected data set. And that data is always incomplete and it's always biased. So for example, if we'd fed in the odd picture of a dog at the classification stage and told it it was a cat, it would believe us, and it would iterate off the back of that, and then we get these so-called hallucinations. So one thing I would urge you to do is that if you're working with AI, always ask, like, what's the data that this machine has been trained on? what's included and what's excluded. And I think the importance of this is really underlined by an example from the medical profession, where biased databases, so databases were created of patients with different symptoms for disease, but the data set was highly biased towards white males, as a lot of data is. And so what that meant in practice is actually a lot of people who identify as women and a lot of non-white people were misdiagnosed, and as a result suffered illnesses, and some of them actually had fatal consequences. So it's really important all the time to be alive to this issue around what is the data, what's missing, what's included. And then finally, we're just getting now into the realms of interaction AI, and this again builds on those two previous steps. And this is essentially where AI can respond to us kind of on the fly. It can communicate with other technologies and other AIs, and we can do things like instead of just like generating an image, so like collaborating data, we can actually build what feels like an autonomous AI cat. And I can say, look, I want this cat to do this, this, and this. And then as we interact, it will be able to do different things and to learn what I like and to work with me and to evolve over time. So that's kind of where we're getting to. So in terms of like AI and online learning, where are we? Well, we're basically at the generation stage. So as I've said earlier, we've actually had this classification AI in online learning for quite a long time. These tools here on the left-hand side all use basic machine learning to, first of all, categorize and then notice patterns in data. So for example, if you do a course on Udemy on, I don't know, computer science, you may notice that you're then inundated with recommendations for other computer science courses. So that's what's going on there. The most recent trend is to give information chat interfaces. So because of ChatGPT, chat interfaces are now the new big thing. And so what we're seeing is, you can see here, the Salesforce's new tool. They've built this internal tool for corporate learning, which essentially puts a chat interface on top of all of the organizational data. So what it enables learners to do is to go in and say, I want to learn about leadership, and it will very quickly find where the leadership content is. But underneath it's just the same. It's just basic classification and finding stuff. And then, as you'll have noticed, over the last 8-9 months, we've got this whole new raft, hundreds and hundreds of new AI tools, which are not necessarily designed for us online learning folks, but certainly are being used by them. So these are tools like these here, which enable us to use text prompts to generate content very, very quickly. So what we're seeing is this new generation of content emerging, which is on average takes 19 minutes, for example, to create a video, versus previously it may have been like 9 weeks. So generative AI is being used predominantly to speed up what we already do. And this is a point that I'd really like to emphasize, that for me, the biggest risk, and this is a quote actually from Professor Dan Schwartz, who is a professor of, I think, learning design, but of education anyway, at Stanford, and he's much smarter than me. And he said the biggest risk of AI is that it makes us more effective at ineffective practices. And so what we've seen so far is the use of AI, and to be honest, the use of technology in general. So if you think about the LMS, for example, if you think about quizzing tools, all of these things that have been built for us as learning designers for the delivery of online learning, perpetuate, and if you like, bake in, scale this broken model of teaching and learning, where I stand at the front and here's some information. So for example, a lecture that looks like this on the left hand side in person is as ineffective as, but very similar to, a MOOC that is a video and then maybe a knowledge check, a discussion or similar afterwards. And so I think there is a huge risk, and this is the trend that we've seen so far over the last 9 months, is that AI is just being used to do this faster and cheaper. And so there is a scenario in which AI takes us down a rabbit hole, and we simply scale this model of online learning that results in a 12% impact rate and a 4% completion rate. So I guess the big question then is, how could AI help? And this is what I've been researching with my co-founder, Gianluca Mauro, M-A-U-R-O. If you're into AI, follow him. He's fabulous. He teaches AI at Harvard. And we've been exploring this, like, what could AI do if we were more ambitious about how we use it online learning? And So here's just a little bit of like visionary stuff, maybe, well, hopefully to get you excited. So what I've done is I've thought about this at every stage of the design process. So if we start with analysis, what I'm finding on the ground in higher ed is that, and in learning and development and elsewhere, to be honest, these problems exist across the education ecosystem. What I'm finding is that people feel sometimes that either we just design the course, the learning experience that the teacher wants to build, which is maybe fine, and I know in a higher ed context it's often what we have to do, but what that doesn't do is optimize for learner motivation. So what we don't do is ask, and what do the learners need, and who are the learners, and how do we somehow find like the intersection of those two things. The other problem, pain at the moment that I'm finding is that people feel like when they can choose which course to design, so for example in a corporate learning context, it's a bit of a finger in the wind exercise. It's like, I think we need a course on leadership, let's build one maybe for everyone. But what AI can do is it's essentially a data analysis machine. So it can do super complex things with data that already exists. So what we're seeing already, for example, is educators using AI to feed in existing data about who their learners are, feedback from previous years, data on dropout and this kind of thing, to identify both what they need to design and how they need to design it. And so there's something very powerful here about the ability that AI gives us to understand exactly what our learners need, what they want, and how we need to optimize it for the achievement of outcomes. And I think we're going to see huge developments there. The other thing is evidence-based design. So the other big pain point that I've found, again, across the ecosystem, including in higher ed, is that instructional designers often don't have the time to become experts in learning science. There's a few reasons for that. One is that we're just all so busy being project managers, holding meetings, getting our heads around the next big subject, becoming expert in physics when the last course was arts or whatever it is. The other reason I think is because, and this is something that I find very frustrating and that my work is trying to help to fix, but the other thing is that a lot of this evidence, or a lot of the evidence on how humans learn and how we should design stuff, is locked behind paywalls in ivory towers. So it costs money and time to get at it, and if you can get at it, it's written in such a coded way that it's really hard to translate into practice. But I think AI will help to kind of crack this open and solve this problem. I think what we're going to see is the emergence of more tools to help drive evidence-based design. So if you put in a topic, an objective, and a learner, it will be able to review all of the evidence and tell you what we know about the most effective way to teach that thing in seconds. And I think we'll also see tools like, so for example, a tool I would recommend right now is one, I'm not sponsored, but I use it all the time, is called Elicit, E-L-I-C-I-T AI. And it's essentially enables you to get summaries of research that are very practical very quickly. So yay for that, and more of that. Next stage, of course, is delivery. I think we're definitely already seeing this. We're going to see AI-powered delivery. So what we're going to see is tools like those we saw before, Synthesizia, InVideo, ChatGPT. All of those things are going to help us make more images, more videos, to write scripts, to translate scripts, which at the moment is a real, I mean, you tell me, but I'm finding on the ground that that's a massive time suck, is writing scripts, but also translating them into lots of different languages. It costs lots of money and time. So AI is definitely going to help us with that bit. And then, of course, big data evaluation. As things stand, we have an idea of what a great optimal way is to design a learning experience. And the way that we understand that is from data that's usually shared in academic journals. What AI is going to be able to do is to help us to design experiences, but then to really track the impact. So I think we'll see a shift from a focus on evaluation of, for example, who completed it, or what's the score on the quiz, and more like, okay, how did that impact their behavior on the ground? So we're going to be able to connect different types of data together, and we're going to actually, for the first time, be able to be accountable to and to show the impact that different approaches to learning design have on various things, from like employment to life chances and everything in between. So get ready for to become a data expert is one of my tips. And so, yeah, essentially what we can do, the potential impact of AI is that it will enable us to scale models of online learning and teaching that just haven't been scalable before. So the status quo where we are right now is that we've got these online courses, which, as I say, have kind of scaled this Victorian approach of knowledge transfer, which is essentially content and a quiz, or content and a discussion, content and some sort of test of how well you remembered it. And that only leads to a 12% learning transfer and is really hard in terms of engagement, completion, etc. What AI is able to do is to, and I encourage you here to read upon the Bloom 2 Sigma problem if you haven't yet, but what Bloom said back in the 1980s is that we know that if we can deliver contextualized, active, personalized and supported, ideally one-to-one learning experiences. So if, for example, if basically we can turn a professor into a coach, we see at least a 67% transfer, so transfer to actual knowledge gain and skills. We have not been able to scale this before. I think one of the biggest promises of AI is that it might enable us to scale this model of online learning and learning in general, which we know is significantly more impactful than what we already have. So what does this mean for the future of online learning teams? A lot of people ask me at the moment, Phil, am I going to lose my job? Are you going to lose yours? Right, well, we don't know. However, if we focus only on automation, so if we only just use AI to automate what we already do, then of course there is a risk that the human becomes replaced by the machine. However, it's much more ambitious. If we think about how we can use AI to augment what we do, then humans become more important than ever. And I've just done a quick summary here of what roles might look like in the very near future if we take AI in this direction. So the leadership is all about getting to know the potential of AI in the education context, setting a vision, a strategy, and building partnerships. Designers on the ground will spend less time managing projects and working with SMEs and more time building and maintaining data sets. So you can imagine a world in which instead of working with Professor X on your course, you actually just gather together all of their data, anything they've produced already, you maybe interview them, and you build a data set from which to generate course rather than needing to mitigate it through human relationships. And I think designers will also be absolutely critical in terms of QAing both the data that goes in and the data that comes out, for example, the quality of the designs or the quality of the delivery and the impact on the ground. So again, I'll say again, learning designers, hone up your data skills. I'm working on this right now. And then delivery, yeah, I think you're going to be much more focused on co-creating stuff. Picture yourself as a cyborg co-creating with AI, but again, absolutely critical to defining what great looks like and maintaining all of the databases and evaluating impact and this kind of thing. So humans are, in my view, in the post-AI world, more important than ever. And just to round up, if this sounds like wild and like a crazy future that maybe will happen at the end of your career, I would like to share some initial testings and findings to show that maybe not, maybe this is going to happen sooner than you think. So at the moment, I am working on a series of prototypes with a series of partners, and this is our initial findings. We're only focusing on the design part of the process right now. But what we found is that by using an AI that I've built that is with kind of learning science baked in, we are able to significantly reduce the time and the cost and significantly increase the quality of learning designs. And we're seeing crazy things like it now takes 9 minutes rather than 9 months to design a course with a subject matter expert that is tailored to your specific institution and learners. So watch this space. And yeah, just a warning that I think there is going to be in 2024 a big crossroads for online learning. And I would just like to urge you, when you're part of this change, which inevitably you will be, to really think about which way you want to go. And I think there will be two directions will emerge. One is what we're seeing already, which is people using AI to do what we already do faster, cheaper, etc. So to automate. And the other is a group of people who will use AI to augment what we do, to actually improve the model of learning that we design and deliver, and to do a better job of serving our learners on the ground. And then finally, the thing that I get asked the most is like, is the tech ready for is the tech going to revolutionize everything? Is it going to change everything? Is it going to take our jobs and all these things? What I would like to say is that AI, specifically in technology in general, could have disrupted education for the last 60 years. If you think about what we do every day, how we buy food, how we listen to music, how we watch TV, how we access services, all of those things have been disrupted by technology, and many of them by AI. But in the world of education, technology is only ever baked in the established way. It's oiled the machine that was first introduced in the 19th century. So the big question I think we need to ask is less around like, is the technology capable of disrupting education and online learning in particular, it absolutely is. The bigger question is like, are we humans ready, able and empowered to make that happen and to make that change happen? And I think if you want to see that change, you really, like, I urge you to be part of it. It's going to come down to people like us on the ground to be pushing that. So yeah, that's me. If you don't already, give me a follow on LinkedIn. I talk about this stuff all the time. So if you want more, follow me. And yeah, if you're interested in my research with Gianluca, you can scan here and either just say you want to learn more about it as we find out more, or you can apply to be part of it. But yeah, thanks so much for your attention, and I hope you have a brilliant day. The agenda looks incredible. I wish I was there too. But yeah, thanks so much.
So I'm sure they might be. Oh, thank you so much. That was lovely. That was putting us in the right train of thought, you know, realizing which side of the fence are we going to be, where are we going to take our practices, knowing now that it is going to be significantly impacted by you know, the vast explosion of technologies that has come to change human reality as we know it. I was hoping to open up for some questions. If there are specific questions, let me just check how much time we've got. Marie, you can let me know. But in the meantime, I want to open up. Just put up your hand, and then let's get some questions going. Natasha, you're welcome to go.
Hi there. So yeah, I guess my question is around the IP in terms of whose property the information that these tools generate, especially ChatGPT, as the legality behind it does say that it, you know, everything generated there belongs to them. So I know that there's that 30-day sort of limitation on when this sort of information is supposed to disappear, but do we have IP issues around lesson plans, you know, learning outcomes, etc., generated by the tool?
Absolutely. Hey, Natasha, thanks. That's a great question. Yes. So I think one of the, and in fact, I can share this afterwards because it's really interesting, but there has just been a meta study is going to be released next month, I think it is, of the big challenges of AI in higher ed. And one of them is this. So like, how do we need more rules? We need more AI strategies and ethical frameworks to understand who, for example, yes, does the intellectual property belong? So on a very high level, like on an institutional level, we need to have some rules around things like how to cite things that are co-created with AI, and how to, typically what we're seeing happen is that, for example, if we co-create a course with a professor, the IP remains either theirs or the university's, depending on who owns it in the first place. But what we need is some really clear guidance on that so that we don't get into any hot water. And that's actually the most urgent recommendation of that study. So there's that. And I think then on a very practical level, in terms of like, as a learning designer, how do I just make sure that I am not crossing any data boundaries and respecting privacy and this kind of thing? There's two things here. So one is, never put anything confidential into ChatGPT. I'm sure you know that already. However, what we are seeing is the creation of things like ChatGPT Enterprise, which is designed to be much more closed and aligned with data policies that we need as an institution, so that we're not compromising data. The other thing that we can do to add an extra layer, which I always do, is there are a lot of really handy AI tools out there, non-AI tools out there, which you can use to anonymize data before it goes into AI. And so you can still get some really great insights without actually giving away information. But yeah, on that question around IP, it's one where there is some precedent, and you can see different universities are already introducing policies, but one where definitely we need, as learning designers, some guidance from the leadership.
Thanks, Philippa. Then there are quite a number of interesting comments on the side. People are saying they've attended an ADEIL conference last night on AI, and they found this session the most informative so far.
Oh, wow.
So that's a
winning. Thank you.
Yeah, Liz is saying about how AI is her favorite co-worker, and it doesn't have an attitude and it doesn't complain about work.
Well, I mean, this is like such a good point though, that like, so for example, like some of the research recently has shown that they did a blind test, and patients found that AI doctors were more empathetic than human doctors. Lots of interesting things, but part of the reason is that of course AI has infinite amounts of patience and energy, and so as a co-worker, and again with the caveat that it all depends how we prompt it. Every time we use AI like ChatGPT, we are doing that input-output thing. So if I ask ChatGPT right now to design me a course, it will give me an awful course that's a 3-hour video and a quiz, because that's what it's been that's the data it's been trained on. But if I give it a prompt where I give it constraints because I know what good looks like, then it's, yeah, absolutely like the best possible co-worker. But I would say the power dynamic is like, it's your apprentice. You have to give it the right direction, or what it gives you back is meh. And I know it's a cliche, but garbage in, garbage out. But absolutely, it's also it's like my best friend in a non-tragic way, I hope. But yeah, it's great.
Well, interesting that you were talking about the doctors. In the presentation we had heard last week, the statistics, which is now not verified, was that there's a 5% accuracy or level of mistakes that human doctors make when they make diagnostic, they diagnose patients, whereas a 2% for AI. So, that 3% is quite significant, I think, if you're going to look at it statistically. But as I say, I haven't verified it, but there are certainly things that we have to acknowledge that AI is better at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also to not necessarily see that as a threat. I think what we should do is say, okay, what's AI great at? What's it less great at? And it's really great at seeing patterns and not making mistakes because it's not tired, it's not stressed, whatever. And so I think it will. So, for example, in the case of doctors, they've been using AI for years, and it's not replaced doctors. It's just meant that they can be more effective, see more patients, do more of the research that then underpins what we train the machine to do. So, and I think that's what will happen in most cases. We're seeing that in different contexts, like IKEA. They've taken a similar strategy, so they're not losing staff, they are retraining, augmenting, etc. So I think it's actually to keep an eye on the medical world, because they're kind of a step ahead. Is very reassuring to see. Actually, it's just going to help us to avoid errors and to be better at the things where we're great.
I see Tony is asking about our readiness to reinvent ourselves.
Yes, and it is I think that's the fundamental question. It's like, maybe our readiness. So do we have an appetite to change how we work? I think as humans, we just default to continuity over change. I think also often our KPIs are, well, do what you did last time, but faster and better and make more money or whatever it is. And so we often have a very short view. So I think partly it's about our leadership being able to give us the freedom to be able to experiment. And I would always recommend just some small A/B testing to prove the business case, but to have that freedom to experiment. But yeah, also, like, do we want it? Like, to change is also to unsettle, like, for example, our existing roles, and to open up opportunities, but also risks. So I think it will ultimately come down to, do we really mean it when we say we want to make online learning better, more accessible? That we want it to change everybody's lives equally, or actually are we happy with the status quo? So I TBC.
Yeah. There's a whole discussion about courtesy and being very Calvinistic, how we've been taught to say thank you and feeling guilty. Johannes Grenier says he's feeling guilty about asking AI to do so many things on his behalf. And then Andrew commented that he sees no harm in thanking AI, because after all, we need to teach AI that the benefits of courtesy is actually a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah, you're training it. But I'm the same. I thought that was a British thing, but I'm constantly apologizing and thanking it. Yeah.
It's amazing. It also tells us how human the conversation is. Because I would never thank Google, for giving me feedback, but I find myself saying thank you and pleased to ChatGPT quite regularly.
Absolutely, it's a great point. Yeah, like clearly we feel connected, and that's just as a final point. As such an important area of research is that yes, we can build all of these technologies. So if, for example, I could give you now like the best possible coach for every single learner, great. But how do the humans feel about it? Like if they know it's an AI, at the moment we've only ever tested AI in addition to a human. If it's entirely AI, kind of how do people feel about it? So I think this human AI interaction research is going to be absolutely critical too. It's not just like, can we build the thing? It's, do we want it? That's probably a bigger question.
Yeah. I don't think we'll be able to stop it anymore, though. You know, do we want it? That boat sailed. You know, now that we know we can write that email that actually sounds.
We could switch it off, and we could definitely better regulate it. The EU are doing a great job on their AI Act. If you want to have a look at like how it needs to be regulated in terms of the data in and out. But yeah, I think maybe, but I think also we have more control over it than often we're told. There's another warning.
Yeah. And then Tony is just commenting that it's deeper than just changing how we work. It's really deep embedded practices and assumptions that we need to change over time.
Absolutely. And again, technology only reflects that and has baked that in. So if you wanted to go and experiment right now, of course you can use ChatGPT to do something much more effective, like closer to what I described, like the constructive approach. But if you can't, but if your technology is built to deliver a video and a quiz, then that's the end. So there's all sorts of cultural, technological, infrastructural things that need to change to enable us to evolve. And I think the way to break through all of that and to do it effectively is A/B testing of like, well, this is the current process. This is what it looks like with AI, like a small slice of something that can be significantly better. And then we make the case to the leadership that like, hey, this is better for everybody. It's quicker, it's faster, it's cheaper. Let's try this. But yeah, it's going to take time and it might not happen.
Yeah. This is fascinating. Thank you so much. We appreciate the inspiration and the vision and the wake-up call and all of it. It was truly fascinating. So thank you so much, Phil, for your time and for your energy. We hope that you'll share some of it with us throughout the day, but if you can't, then we'll also understand. I know that there are people in the chat that said they'd love to contact you and be in touch virtually behind the scenes. That would be cool too. And so thank you again.
Thank you. And yes, please talk to me. If you just get me on LinkedIn, I'm always so happy to talk. But yes, thank you everyone. Have a brilliant day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And then I think we move straight on, Marie, right, to the plenary session, right smack on time. So the plenary session is constructive strategies to prevent cheating with AI, which I think is a very deep, concerning area where, you know, the majority of us are when we struggle with these concepts of where AI is bringing us, that's certainly the one that I think is the one that messes with most of our minds. So I would like to introduce to you Professor Johannes Cronje, who likes to brag with the fact that he sits by the seaside and has a fabulous view to see. Prof. Johannes Cronje needs no introduction, I'm sure, in this group. In this group, certainly, many of us are his products of his inspiration and his wisdom and his guidance over many decades. And I always say, even today, if I have a discussion with Johannes, it's leaving me in one spaces. Either I am crazy inspired and I rush to my computer and I start, you know, researching new fields that I haven't thought of, or I'm sad and despondent thinking that, you know, whatever I've been busy with was so great, only to realize that in the bigger scheme of things, it's literally not even close to where the energy is. And so, Prof. Johannes, we don't call him ABC for nothing. Absolutely brilliant Cronje. He's an entrepreneur, a scholar, a thought leader, and, you know, I think, the head boy of disruption. So, Johannes, I'll hand over to you, and then I think between you and Marie, you'll handle the other participants in this session.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is going to be very exciting. And I've also asked Dr. Francisque Granier, who is related to me by marriage, to join us as well. And the theme that we're talking about is how do we avoid cheating? And I think the way I started this year is by not trying to avoid cheating, but by deliberately teaching students how to use AI. So I take it as a default that anything my students produce will have a section of AI in it. Because I think Tony Carr in the chat a little bit earlier made the point that we can't go on like we used to. In other words, a motor car is not, motor cars only advanced when they stopped thinking about a horse-drawn car with an engine. It's a completely different thing. You must design it completely differently because it's there. And I think the exciting thing for us thanks to or as a consequence of COVID, is that we suddenly, for the first time now, we can no longer show that little picture about, imagine a group of surgeons of 100 years ago walking into an operating theater today. They won't be able to recognize anything, but imagine a group of teachers walking to a classroom today. Nothing's changed. That changed 2 years ago, because I can no longer teach if I don't have a learning management system with me. I simply cannot do it, because how do I do my prep? How do I get my flipped classroom to work? How do I get all those things to work? So that's the first thing, is we must think completely differently about the whole pedagogy of what we are doing. And then the second thing is what we as academics have never really been good at. And that is to remember that an examination is actually a thing that we test how well we actually did the work. And actually, the same that goes for any other test goes for exam. Those two things, reliability and validity. And those, we're trying to get reliability and validity by putting by trying to recognize a student from their student card, where we're thinking that is reliable. That makes no sense. Whereas we can statistically check reliability and validity easily if we have enough data. So that's just my opening gambit. I now invite Donald and I can't see the names because it went on so quickly. Donald and Irene, who I wonder if it's the same Irene that I met in Switzerland a little bit earlier. And Liz and Donald, please to unmute their cameras. Oh, it is the same Irene that I met, and I told her a horrible story that I won't tell the rest of you. And I'm very happy that we met, and that must be Liz. And where's Master Donald? He'll probably join us any minute. So let's hear from the two of you, Liz and Irene, and let's do it in the sequence in which you appeared.
So in which sequence do we appear? Let's do it alphabetically. So Irene, I'm throwing you. Oh, Donald. Well, let's throw Donald under the bus. Donald, alphabetically first.
Yeah, look, the thing is, most of the time, lecturers or academics think of these tools. Take, for example, Turnitin as a police. So they're using it to catch out the students, and it's not necessarily to help them in a constructive way, but sort of like to catch them out. So I think we need to rethink about how we use such skills and what is it that we look for in the student submissions. And we need to teach students to critique whatever that they get from AI. Think about it, think deeply about it, evaluate the processes, identify what the processes are, and yeah, it's clearly not a very easy thing, because we have to change how we think about these tools ourselves and rethink about how we're going to teach students how to use the AIs and stuff.
Right, then we have Liz.
Okay, so clearly I'm going to jump in. So from our perspective, I think it's very dishonest of an academic to be overly concerned about the use of AI with students when we ourselves are using AI. So the question not is the use of AI, but the responsible use of AI. And as I said, I was chatting away in the earlier session in the chat box, AI is really the best co-worker I've ever had. I really believe that, and I'm always very polite to AI because I'm convinced AI might take over, and I want AI to remember me as an early supporter of AI. So for me, it's really about where do the opportunities lie, and what is cheating? I think one can also debate what is cheating.
Exactly.
Is it really a cheat to say, I'm interested, I'm thinking now on one of the modules where they have to develop a research proposal. I'm interested in the field of HIV, generate some research questions. And the AI provide me with a list, and then I can use my intellect to decide, well, I'm not interested in that part of HIV research, and I've now given it limitations. I'm interested in this. And if it's given it to me in a way that is grammatically correct, it's well stated, I've given it the limitations, it's given me the epi triangle that we're always looking for, the who, the what, and the when, yes, then I don't see it as a cheat, and I don't see it, I think that's intelligent use of AI, and that's what I have been doing with some of my own PhD students and some of my own work with Marie and Irene, ironically enough, and another colleague. We wrote a paper, and because there's 4 authors in it, it was quite variable in the writing. The content is perfect, but the writing. And so we used ChatGPT with the instructions, a whole bunch of prompts, but including the instruction to harmonize it from a single author, as it is written by a single author, and the results were stunning. So I don't see that as a cheat. I see that as intelligent use. And so the question for me is, what is intelligent use from students? When is it a cheat and when is it intelligent use? So that would be my early thinking. Thanks.
Thank you. On that, I came across a really interesting dilemma just yesterday. I'm helping a student convert a thesis into an article, and if you have a literature survey in a thesis, there's just way too much. So you've got to crunch it severely. You've got to keep the structure and sometimes even improve the structure, etc., etc. So I went to Bard and I said to Bard, take this 3 pages of text and reduce it to 1 page of text. Keep the citations, keep the quotes, keep everything in, but structure it more better, etc., etc. And it gave me really perfect text, what I really wanted. And then I put it into Turnitin and it said 100% AI generated. Now I'm sitting and saying, must I now rewrite it badly so that it doesn't look AI generated? Or do I write and the place, the journal I'm writing for actually says you've got to make a statement about the AI that you use. And so I'm saying that journal is going to get a zip file saying this is all the stuff that I put in and this is what I got out. And I'm not going to rewrite that because it's crisp, clear, it's good stuff. So this is an experiment that I'm sort of at the top of it. Irene, your turn.
Thanks. I think this is really exciting. There is a lot of potential, a lot of possibilities that we can use. And from my point of view, apart from working on the articles and things with Liz and research projects and Marie, I'm teaching PhD students how to teach. So I'm teaching them actually as students, but from a lecturer perspective. So how do they use AI to increase or improve the quality of their work? And if we think of things like curriculum design, that boring lesson plans, that is so important, but that is really sometimes the last thing in our mind when we prepare for a class. How do we use AI to make that better, to improve that? If I think of how long we've set to develop a curriculum, and if you put the prompts into ChatGPT or Bard and you ask them to help you create this curriculum, how different it looks and how it gathers the information from so many other curriculums to really create something, I want to say unique, but that is relevant, that's contemporary, that's up to date, and then you can tweak it from there. So for me, from an educationist and a curriculum design specialist point of view, there's really a lot of possibilities. If I think of basic things, and now I'm really bringing it down to just ground level for my students to work at, a basic thing like writing a learning outcome that is measurable and specific, and that is not understand and appreciate and all those horrible things. Asking them to take their learning outcomes and just put it in ChatGPT and see how can you convert it to a smart, specific and measurable learning outcome. And that links back to what Liz said, actually, the chat previously of this colleague, the soundboard that you have, that we don't necessarily have to sit now with each student in a class to say, let's re-talk about this, let's work through your learning outcome. Why is it not specific and measurable, and how can you convert this? So this takes really, for me, the place of a teaching assistant sometimes. So I think there is, apart from the other cheating things, I just want to rather focus on the creative part of creating new content. I think there's a really lot of value in it. And yeah, as Liz said, we as lecturers use it. So we can't have the high ground or the more high ground say you may not use it as students, but we are using it. So how do we balance it? And how do we keep our authenticity to say, but this is how we use it and not just fake it?
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Dr. Francie to share her screen because we did something absolutely fascinating yesterday. Well, she did. She got students to work with DALL-E or any image generator of their choice, and she got them to train or to develop prompts to be able to do an idiom. You know, I wonder if she's there. Francie, are you there? You're unmuted.
I'm here. I'm here.
There we go. And can you share your screen, please?
I'm just trying to remember where the share screen button is.
Screen share is at the bottom. There's a sort of a share content at the very bottom. I hope we've got permission. Somebody has to give Dr. Francie permission.
I thought I'm missing something.
She does.
Can somebody make? I'll tell you what. I'm going to ask Francie. Can you just dump the Padlet address into the chat, and then Marie can just display the Padlet.
Yes, I can do that. Let me just.
The chat is at the bottom too. So just while we're talking. Okay, I'm now a moderator and maybe you are too, in which case you can share.
No.
No, okay.
I'm just,
let me see if I can get
just trying to
Padlet.
get the URL.
Here we go.
Be there now. Have you
I
got
can
it?
share my screen now because I've got the Padlet.
Okay, good. Good.
And then if you can talk us through it, that'll be great. Share screen, my Radiant Padlet. I think this is the last of the Padlets that we did.
No, go to the first one.
What was its name? Because it's
a brag book. It's called Brag Book.
Brag Book. Okay, I'll go to Brag Book. Padlet. Ah, brilliant. Here's Brag Book. And then you can quickly just talk people through it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Can I also just answer? I'm just back chatting you a little bit. Can I please answer on the questions you asked the other panel members too?
Yes. Yes.
I'm feeling marginalized.
Okay. I'll unmarginalize you, but good.
Okay. So firstly, I just want to jump forward to any student's world and think about why we are actually facilitating their learning. We're not teaching them, we're facilitating their learning. we're actually facilitating their learning on how to behave and how to enable them in the world of work. And if we don't do this here, who's going to teach them? What are they going to do when they start teaching or when they start working? And then my second point is that we should start this process of integrating AI into classrooms in the high school level already with high school students from you know uh, anything higher than I think grade 8 or something, because that's where you start writing essays and start actually referring to other people and their writings and their knowledge. And that's where you need to start introducing tools on how to do it properly. And not even to talk about undergrads. Undergrads need to learn how to write essays with AI when they enter. It should be part of the literacy, academic literacy. I'm saying this because I'm an academic development editor, and this is just I find it every day that people just don't know very basic things when they already are so knowledgeable in their own fields. And then the last thing I want to say about this is that I think this enables us to expect more of students. It expects more of us, and then we can expect more of students. So my Padlet here, this is just one little thing we did yesterday to get people to assess each other, just to show how peer assessment can work with a little bit of AI. I made them make a little image each, and then they posted it on this Padlet. And then I enabled the grading function on the Padlet so they could peer grade each other. Yes, scroll down and you'll see there's a average on every one of the postings on how many grades they got and what the average grade was then. So yes, that's just one little thing. I mean, there are so many. I'm I'm sort of I just do this all the time, looking for these things. So yeah, like a dog that caught a bus.
And then I think I just would like to show them the others as well. I think the second one was radiant and then idioms, wasn't it? But we then asked them to start making specific idioms, and that was an eye for an eye. And I'm trying to find where mine was that was so particularly horrible. This is the last one where we tried to make the idioms. The second mouse gets the cheese.
Yes, the point was that conceptual thinking, especially in the visual field, is very difficult at the moment with AI. You can make a beautiful image, but it says absolutely nothing. So we made this little exercise about how do you actually create an idiom into a visual that it says what the idiom is supposed to say, and that's something that's a lot of work. It's not coming easily because you need to conceptually find the right words first, how to describe it, and then you need to describe it in a physical terms after you've thought of what you're going to project.
Yeah, and so you see that even there, the students are still very literal. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink. Going down in flames. So close the door, don't slam it. Killing two birds with one stone. It's just very literal.
If you take away the text, it doesn't relate to the idiom yet.
Yeah, not the sharpest pencil in the box. So they're at this stage, the students are just very, very literal. The fool looks at the hand when the wise man points at them. They're bringing across the picture, but they're not bringing across the idiom. And so you see, that's what one would assess. is how well the students are able to bring across. So then you're assessing their critical thinking. The authenticity is assessed by the fact that they're in the room, and the fact that they grade one another gives them that instant feedback on their work. So that's why I thought this was just such a clever indication of how to do it. I'm going to pause and stop the share, and so let's hear any other comments here. I'm liking the chats. Challenges AI, you have to strengthen your own authentic intelligence, absolutely. And if the shift is supposed to be positive using AI, how do you police it? Well, then you don't police it, you tell it to do it. I can also share two things that I did with students. One is an exercise where I made them do their own, well, I gave them a worksheet. And it was a coaching worksheet where they had to be coached into how to write into writing their proposal. So it asked them coaching questions. What is your purpose with doing it? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it that way, etc. Then they had to paste their question and answer into ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to give it a reply, at least to help them improve it, and then reflect on what they learned from ChatGPT's improvement. And then what I graded was their last comment on saying, how well did ChatGPT help me? And so that was reflecting back on an earlier conversation, Philippa and other people on the side here, saying, if you train ChatGPT right, it can be your best friend, as Liz also pointed out. Recently edited over and over until, yeah, this is the other thing that there are, I should actually, I haven't tried it yet, but there's Beat GPT, where I could have taken the one that Bard did, and I could just have posted it straight into Beat GPT or whatever those ones are that remove the GPT lookalike thing. I mean, really, are we going to play cat and mouse, or are we going to say, let's use this thing properly? Other comments? So Natasha says, I edited an assignment over and over until GPT scored at 65. Yep. Any other comments?
Johannes, can I make a verbal comment? So
please.
If it's about cheating, students, it is inherent in being a student. There's always an element, there will always be the challenge to beat the system. That's been there since we had encyclopedias or oral tradition. It's got nothing to do with the use of AI. It's that if one accepts that cheating is always a possibility in any course and in any assessment, then I think the question is, what assessments are we designing that students don't want to engage with and would rather cheat? So I'm going to use a very basic example from one of our online modules where it sounds silly, it's about environmental health, but the lecturer asks the student to take a photograph of their cleaning materials in their own kitchen cupboard, to upload it and look up to say what are the active ingredients, whatever, and then say what is the health effect of that active ingredient on human health. Now, nobody wants to cheat that because they're interested in it, because they want to know to what extent are the cleaning products killing them. So it's those kind of tasks and things like, they had to do a trash diary for a week or two, and they had to then say, but how much of that could have been recycled and so on. So we don't really see cheating with those kind of tasks. What the problem is, from the assessor point of view, it's difficult to grade. So we grade it as you've done it, or there's some basic rubric grading. So, but I don't care if you've got Doom in your cupboard or you've got Jig in your cupboard. I'm more interested in the fact that you did it, you looked it up, and you've seen what the health effect is. So I have to give up some level of control in saying, well, I can absolutely mark this, to rather saying, I can accept you've done the exercise to whatever extent. And so for me, then, I'd much rather have that level of uncertainty as an educator rather than push for more certainty in numbers, in quizzes and things, but I'm then more open to the cheating. So that's just my thinking. Thanks.
Exactly. It's what Seymour Papert calls constructionism rather than constructivism. is once the artifact has been constructed, you know that the student has mastered the work to 100% level. So I never grade. I give exactly the sort of tasks that you did. That whole conversation the student has with ChatGPT, they get 20 marks for uploading it into the system and 0 marks for not uploading it into the system. That's all. And they're not going to ask somebody else to do it. The other thing that I've done, and that is to force cheating. I had a group of, and this I did, I've been doing this for real for a long time before AI. I had a group of students sitting in the back of my class doing an online test, and there were 2 of them sitting next to each other, and they were clearly in competition to get the best marks. It was an online language test, and these 2 were clearly, and they could do it as often as they liked, and they were chasing each other on. And eventually they recruited their friends to come and stand next to them and help with us. And eventually we went to who's the first one to get full marks, and that would be the winner. But in that case, both those students learned way more than they would have learned by not doing. And also, all the ones standing around them, edging them on, also learned. And then I brought that into my regular teaching. So for the sake of reliability and validity, every time a student sees me, or every time the student attends a class, I do flipped classrooms. I don't call them flipped classrooms, I call them homework. And so a student has to either watch a YouTube video and do a multiple choice test, and that is just because it's basic knowledge, and the test is just for me to make sure the student has watched the video. And those tests they can do as often as they like, and they will get the Linda says, is she the only one who's lost audio? It's just you, too bad. Okay, and so now I've gone offline. Yeah, so it's just to make sure they've looked at it. Then what happens is they can do it as often as they like, and the system will give them the average. And what's been really interesting to see is that students will do a test 3, 4, 5 times. One student did the first test 47 times because he wanted to get full marks. And he got to 9.4. And I eventually in class, I opened the test and I went through it with him. And there was one question that stumped him every single time. And that was a question that was a visual question. I had 4 buildings, and they had to identify whether those buildings were constructivist or instructivist or whatever. You know, they had to make an interpretation. He is from an Arabic country. He doesn't understand those languages, and he certainly doesn't understand the style of those architectures. So he would never get that question correct. So that's why he couldn't get full marks. So I said, look, for trying 47 times, I will give you 0.1 of a mark, which will take you to 45, at least to 9.5, and that'll pass you. And then, of course, the other thing is, so you know, Liz, to your point, is force them to cheat, because if they want, if you get them to buck the system and actually you do a reverse psychology on them. If they cheat, they actually do what you expected them to do. Linda will know that I taught that way in the master's class that she attended with me all the time, that it was really their attempts to try and do that. And then the other thing is I have, every time they see me, they have already done some sort of work. So I end up with having 30 or 40 data points that I can check for reliability and validity. I check whether the data point is in line with all the rest of the student's work. So in other words, if the student has decided that that student is a 60%er, are all the assignments 60%? And is it in line with the group average? If the group suddenly went up, did the student also suddenly go up? And if those 2 things are in place, then I know statistically that the chances are very low that there's been a cheat. And so that's my bit of story. Irene, I see you've been nodding and very actively a real active listener. So any word from you?
Thanks, Johannes. Now, I just think we tend to think old school when we think of assessments and assignments, and we do not help the students to scaffold their learning. And I think that's also one of the reasons why they cheat. I really like Liz's idea for the assignments and your idea. But if I think of basic things. We are all really busy, and some of us have really large classes. How do you scaffold that assignments that the students don't have this huge deadline 3 months from now, and then the night before the deadline they realize, I had to write a 5,000-word essay or something. How do you scaffold it in small bites that they continuously work, that the incentive to anyway cheat, and I want to go back to the cheating part, to ask someone else to do it for them, whether it is a friend, ChatGPT, or a service that they paid for, but to eliminate that there is manageable things that they can do that helps them actually to progress and to have a feel-good feeling of, I manage, I can do this. There's small successes built into the journey, because that is what our life is. In life, we exercise, and every time we exercise, we can do a little bit more. Every time, hopefully, we cook a little bit better. Not me, but any which way. But there's small successes built into life.
Exactly.
Why don't we do that with assessments and assignments? Why don't we help the students on this journey? And for me, that is, I think, the solution.
Yep.
We need to help them and guide them in this process.
So that's exactly what I did when in my research methods class they had to learn how to do a structured literature review. The first thing they had to do is use Elicit or Reader Rabbit or a Research Rabbit or something like that to obtain a big picture of the literature. They had to draw me a spidergram of the literature, and they had to show where the gap is, where there's nothing in that spidergram. Then they had to take those spidergrams and they had to make that, and for that they got 5 marks if they did it and no marks if they didn't do it, because it was half an hour's work. Then they had to take that and take that into a branching tree diagram. And the branching tree diagram had to tell me what the 5 or 6 subheadings of the literature survey would be. Then they had to write the actual body of, then they had to make a table of the literature using Elicit, and then convert that into cut and paste that into the relevant paragraphs under there, then ask ChatGPT to tidy it up for them so that it looks like a literature review, then use Mendeley to make the things at the bottom and so on. And so it was bit by bit by bit. When the final thing was done, it was clean copy and it was perfect work, and there was no cheating because they used the AI responsibly and ethically. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 1 minute left. Any last words from anybody? Yes, Irene says peer teaching. Absolutely.
I think, again, if you look at the way we assess our students, if we involve them in these peer activities, again, we take away the cheating, because they have to cooperate and collaborate, and they have to participate. And again, it's how, I think my final words is, it's about how we structure it and what the students see as the added value of this activity, that it is a valuable time investment for them in doing this. And I think that links to what Donald and Liz has also, and you actually have said. So that's from me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to the end. It is exactly 10:15, and this conference has been very strict on us for time. So I'm going to thank the other presenters who haven't had a time to chip in again. Donald, you've been very quiet, but thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody else. It's been a really excellent time with you. Over to you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Prof, and everybody who participated and gave us this very valuable discussion about where we are going with the AI. So we are going to continue with the symposium now. There's a short break, so you need to log out from this session, and then there are 3 halls. So you can see on the program, so hall 1 will be the presentation that starts with immersive training for educators, and hall 2 will be a workshop about promoting change leadership in technology-enabled TVET lessons from Zambia. And in hall 3, we start with a workshop about unlock the power of play for game-based learning. So yeah, there's the presenter. And so yes, thank you so much for attending the first part. Please log off and then log into the session that you want to go to. We see you in 10 minutes time, 10:25.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
See you, Irene.